A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ronaldo Meyer. I am the Executive Director of the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry's main objective is to advocate for economic growth and employment within the Free State region. We are a newly established chamber. We've been going on since 2018. We've got a vast membership base, and we continue building on being the advocate for the economic growth within the region. Just a bit more background regarding the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for those that don't know yet. We are the preeminent voice advocating for increased trade and investment between businesses within each sector, as well as within the government, within the Free State. That is obviously the province and the region that we find ourselves in, with the focus on leading the Free State business community. It has been a community that has always been deemed as one that is slow in progression, and that is something that we would like to change as a Chamber of Commerce. And the fundamental role of this institution is to defend and promote the interests of its members, and its members is divided obviously into 8 groups representing the major sectors within the Free State province, and that is the commerce, the industry, the financial services, tourism sector, logistics and transportation, ITC, property development, and also other business services. And that is just a background on the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry. But obviously you would like to know who are the faces and who are the ones steering the ship regarding that. We've got Mr. Thabo Pitse. Actually, Thabo Pitse is actually just a better way of saying, because he's a serial entrepreneur. He's also the CEO of Sage Africa, certified professional business coach, and action coach franchise partner with the guys in the US as well. He's a global speaker and also a master trainer in entrepreneurship. Then we've got our first vice president, who is Charlie Naidu. She's an admitted attorney, specialist in local government, and she's the head of legal services of the Mangaung Metro Municipality. Also a motivational speaker, and that also helps her with a lot of the philanthropy work that she's been doing across the spectrum over the years that she's been involved in the Free State province, but also in the South African context. Also, we've got Jaco Grobler, that's also our treasurer. He's a chartered accountant, specialist in financial management, and also a auditing services specialist as well. And he's been very helpful with helping us as a chamber being able to give the correct advice to all of our members regarding how they can restructure their business and also understand the economic development and changes that are taking place within the economic context we find ourselves in. Then we've got Andor van der Linde, that is our labor relations expert and also HR specialist, strategic BEE interventions, and she's also being able to assist with regard to statutory project planning and management as well. So Andor has also been very helpful with the establishment of that particular footprint within the Free State. Then you've got myself. I don't know, I think most of you guys know a lot about me, but that's Ronaldo Meyer. I'm the executive officer, or I'm representing the chamber from the executive office as well. There's a bit of background on what I've been involved with. I think highlighting there the fact that I've been in a couple of managerial positions with the rugby, also performance analysis with them, sit on the board of a couple of NGOs and also non-profit organizations, and also involved with investment capital, and also understanding the way in which corporate governance functions as well. Now, tonight, having a very interesting conversation with Ms. Connie as well from the legislature's office as well. Connie Khantsi-Sefo, I got the surname correct, and it is absolutely going to be a pleasure to be able to speak to her today about the impact of business involvement in the lawmaking process. Now, I've been involved in a lot of transactions, and I've been involved in a lot of corporate governance and being able to understand how government and local procurement works and just all of those things. But then you start to realize, but what is actually the role and the impact that business can have in the involvement while the lawmaking process actually takes place? And I've actually realized that a lot of people sometimes don't understand the fundamental role that business owners and businesses actually play. And so I thought it well to actually get an expert in the legal field, which is Connie, to actually come on board and actually speak to us about it. Now, Connie is an attorney, and also she's a legal advisor for the Free State Legislature. And she also has got amount of experience in corporate governance. And she's been able over the years to be able to assist a lot of NGOs and a lot of non-profit organizations to make the difference that needs to happen within the sphere of business and also the sphere of government, and also understanding corporate governance. She's the founder and chairperson of Do Something Foundation, which have done a considerable amount of work over the past couple of years within the Free State, and also within the country as well. And she'll share a bit more about that when the time allows it for it. And also you'll be able to see all of that on the website as well. But she's mainly a director as well on Sefo Bosman a law firm that she's obviously a director on. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over to Connie to also just share with us a bit about the impact of business involvement in the lawmaking process. And before I actually give over to her, I would just like to mention two things to everyone joining in. Please do make use of the chat room for any questions that you would like to raise. Please share it in there. My assistant Sanet will make sure that all of that is taken up. So please put all your comments in there. Also, please make sure that your audio is on mute throughout the entire duration of the Zoom conference, so that when Connie speaks, that we are obviously giving her a good amount of time so she can actually be heard. And I think, with all due respect, everyone wants to have a good understanding to that. So thank you so much, Connie, really for coming on board and really availing yourself. I really am excited to listen in, just like everyone else that has joined in to us. So thank you so much. Over to you, Connie.
Thank you so much, Leon. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like to take this moment to really appreciate the invitation. It was not easy for me to just accept it, because knowing the magnitude of the chamber itself and its work and their involvement. However, when I looked at one of your priorities, I must say, I got encouraged, because I think as part of government or a government employee, I also have to play part in demonstrating what is it that the government is doing. I looked at one of your priorities that encouraged me was encourage and facilitate interaction of your members with public authorities, and that captured my attention, and I said there's no way I can refuse this invitation. Before I continue, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to just say, can you please take this moment to ask yourself and note these questions that you will be able to answer to yourself at the end of this presentation. The question that you need to ask yourself is, what is my role? And how does this impact me or the organization that I serve? What is being asked of me as an individual and as a member of the public in South Africa? Why should I make time for this? And how will I be held accountable, and by whom? What is the value of the public business voice and the importance of their involvement in the value chain of lawmaking process? And lastly, when last have you paused and made time to consider an invitation to comment or make submissions on the piece of legislation? If you did, how did you feel? If you didn't, how did you feel, and why didn't you do something about it? Oh, yes. My role as a legal advisor of the Free State Legislature is to actually assist the committee section to compile quality reports on the consideration of the bill by indicating the proposed amendments, if any, agreed to or rejected by the committee, and list all reasons for such as required by the rules, and ensure that the committee complies with all other requirements of the rules, and to provide overall quality content support to the committees on the bills before them, advice on whether, considering its importance and complexity, the time period provided will be sufficient for the consideration of the bill. I also advise on the requirements of the negotiating mandate procedures in terms of the rules and orders, and assist in summarizing the content of the bill for the committee, as well as the written comments. The initiation of a bill. A bill can come as an idea, and it can come as an idea that comes from government administrators or individuals, members of public that can make inputs to the administrators or interest groups. It can also be initiated by members of parliament and also members of the executive council. It can also come as an idea from party policy and advisory bodies which may be appointed by the administrators also. That's how a bill or legislation can be initiated. Oh, I'm going to the wrong. The Freedom Charter declared many years ago that the people shall govern. When the constitutional drafters of our constitution devised this legislative system for our democracy, I believe they might have had this slogan in their minds. The South African Constitution in its nature, it's representative and participatory. And the representative aspect of it embraces the multi-party democracy achieved through regular elections based on common voters' roll and proportional representation. And the important aspect that I have decided to pick, hence the title of my presentation is Participatory Democracy. It's about participatory aspect, and that is because it goes further than regular elections that we held every 5 years. And it guarantees that each citizen gets involved in between the elections. The two aspects should not be seen as conflicting with each other, but because to me, I believe they are complementary to each other. Public participation is linked to political participation, which is contrary to belief to many people who believe that they would always say, I don't have anything to do with politics. By really saying that you're actually leaving many things to happen without your consent. And in other words, public participation to me is the legislative process that is actually very integral part of each and every member of the citizen of the country. Our constitution, ladies and gentlemen, is the supreme law of the South Africa. It provides, amongst others, how the three spheres of government, namely the legislature, the executive authority, the judicial authority, actually conduct their business. Chapter 4 of the Constitution sets out all the national legislative process and determines that Parliament is the national legislature. In other words, it's the national lawmaking body. And both houses of Parliament, namely the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, they play a role in this process of legislative authority. Under the previous regime, the majority of South Africans were actually excluded from public life. And in particular, they were denied the right to actually vote. And in breaking away from this old system, Section 59(1)(a) and Section 72(1)(a) and 1181(a) actually introduced a constitutional duty on National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and provincial legislatures to facilitate public participation when executing their legislative processes. There are signals and drivers on this issue of participatory democracy. In the case of Lamosa judgment, all the bills that the court decided that all the bills that were received, they must be widely advertised. Now, as a legislature, the role that I mentioned earlier on when I started, it becomes difficult even if we have widely advertised, because we don't get people like the professionals, the business, people with technical know-how to participate in this process. That is why I'm here today to request that we need your help, because this judgment provides that we must summarize everything that we hear from the public. We must also determine whether a bill requires public hearings or not. But this is an aspect that I am going to show you the danger of it if members of the public, who must actually enjoy both aspects of our constitution, do not participate in this process. All negotiating mandates must be considered in detail, and they must be accompanied by detailed report. Now, you tell me, if people who attend the public hearings are not people who have the technical know-how, how will I be able to put a detailed report that has all the implications that can affect the implementers of the legislation? Because at the core of the participatory democracy, we have the values. That value, number one, is that commitment. It must be there. Recognition of rights and responsibilities. All members of the public, including business, they must recognize that they have rights and responsibilities, and they must understand that they have access and they can request clarity on any information. And that is what I get paid for. And I'm going to request you that you must make me to enjoy my money. Continuity. Our engagements with members of the public, with business, it must be on a continuing basis. We must have a proper structure on how we can coordinate our engagements and publicity. The objectivity and equal treatment, transparency, openness and consideration resources, sufficient time, accountability for the processes and results, and acknowledgement and feedback on the feedback evaluation as to how are we actually engaging with each other. There is this interesting court case that I want to tell you about. This case actually reflects how minute things, when public participation is not conducted properly, can affect the way the law is being drafted. In this case, the SAVA is the South African Veterinarians Association. They brought a case before the court to have a direct access in terms of section 1674E of the Constitution on whether has Parliament failed in its constitutional duty to facilitate public participation in the legislative process when they actually enacted section 16, which introduced the new word, which is veterinarian. You will excuse me for that. The facts in this matter is that the amendment bill was approved by Cabinet. It was introduced by the Department of Health to the Cabinet, and it was approved by the Cabinet in December 2011, and it was published for comments. The second version of this bill was published on the 20th of February 2014, and it did not include the word veterinarian, but it added another word that is called practitioner to the list. Now, during this public participation, the Pharmaceutical Society of South Africa recommended that to the veterinarians that the veterinarians be treated the same way as other professionals regarding the compounding and dispensing of medicines. Their reason was that the veterinarian were not properly trained to compound and dispense medicine, despite the fact that this has been part of their curriculum at the university. And on the 19th of November 2014, the National Assembly, through its Health Committee, met with the Department of Health. And the Department of Health submitted comments about the proposal, and the Health Committee accepted those proposals. And the bill was adopted on the 5th of August 2015, and it was then referred to the NCOP, and the select committee was briefed by the Department of Health at the NCOP. Now, SAVA submitted that the department did not brief the health committee on this matter when they were inserting the word the veterinarian. And NCOP then referred the bill to the provinces for public hearings. Remember, SAVA was part of the initial public participation with the National Assembly. So that is why they were talking about this word not being explained. And they did not see it. It was put after they had their own inputs on the second version of the bill. Now, during the public hearings at the provinces, the only 7 provinces gave notice, but Gauteng and Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Northwest, they actually gave notice of only 2 days before the public hearings, and other provinces could not be established what really happened, whether they, except Free State, of course, whether they gave proper notice. On the 2nd of November 2015, the NCOP then passed the bill with the amendments and sent it back to the National Assembly. The National Assembly adopted the bill with the amendments, and they passed it. But it was then later, when the bill was now in force, that SAVA noticed that this word veterinarian was included into Section 22C of the Act, and that actually had an effect on them, because that amendment then meant to them that they cannot compound medicine and dispense it without obtaining a license from the DG of the Department of Health, without prescribed conditions and medicines, which was not yet the case at the time. So they took the court, they took the parliament to court for that. And guess what? The court's decision was that direct access, their first request to the court was to have direct access, considering the fact that they know that the National Assembly did do their part, but it's only the NCOP that did not do their part. So they were not so sure whether they can actually challenge Parliament. But the court said, if the Parliament as a whole has failed, if either of the houses has failed in their obligations to facilitate public involvement, then it means Parliament as a whole has failed its constitutional obligation. And the word veterinarian was declared to have been amended in a manner that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution. And eventually it was severed. Fortunately, eventually it was severed from the section, and the whole the whole amendment act was not declared to be invalid. I think that was luck in their part. Now, when you look at all these things that I've just spoke about, there are key considerations which are very important when we deal with what we call public participation. Access to information. All the people must understand that access to information is a first and basic and important right underlying the processes of public participation, because it informs the public about its plans and types of document that it needs to adopt at the beginning of the process. It gives the right to members of the public to have access to all information. Now, in terms of this is the right that is entrenched in the Bill of Rights in terms of Section 32. Now, the consultation one, it's also a right that is entrenched in terms of the Constitution, in terms of Section 33. And it is a form of participation where government can actually issue invitations to public to provide opinions on and comments and views on the feedback. And also it allows the public to express opinion on other issues contained in the draft. And it can be organized with broader groups like the Free State Chamber of Commerce Industry, so that we can actually have a reactive way of participating instead of just sitting and not doing anything. And not participating in the legislative process also opens government to unnecessary criticism, because it's easier to criticize when you don't really know what is happening behind the closed doors. So active involvement, which can actually bring partnership between the business and government, can actually assist. And it really makes it difficult for us as lawyers to consider legislation without the expert understanding of the implementation of it. So I believe business has different types of professionals within them, so they can always be able to know if a certain legislation comes, who can they refer it to for making comments and inputs, and even attending the public participation. In Free State, it's really pathetic because the members of the community, they don't attend public participation. And it's not only that they don't attend, they also don't submit written submissions. Now, collaboration would help, and it can initiate, and it can come either from either side. It can come from business, it can come from the legislature itself. And agreements about common goals, we can have that as a regulatory framework. I know in South Africa, we are still a developing country, and our regulatory framework when it comes to public participation regarding lawmaking process is not yet written down in a proper manner. And retention of independence to advocate and campaign for solution will actually be entrenched if partnerships are formed. Now, coming to the benefits and opportunities that collaboration with the legislature and business being involved in lawmaking, it will be business and citizens and organizations and other interested parties can be able to influence the development of policies and laws. Currently, we are having a situation where you'd find that members of the community are complaining that businesses are being given to certain people, or there are people from outside the country who do not even qualify to have business within our country. Creating fair policies would be something else. Instead of members of the public actually complaining when law is already in operation, participating in making that law would assist. If you have seen what I've said in terms of my role as a legal advisor, you would understand that it's not the politicians who write those reports. It's us administrators, the legal advisors. But if we don't have people attending public participation or taking part in that, it makes our life difficult because we would have nothing to write about. So facilitating cross-sector dialogue and reaching consensus would be one of the benefits and opportunities. Decreasing cost as parties can contribute with their own resources. That would be a benefit for government as well. Adopting more forward and outward looking solutions. It could help also to ensure legitimacy of proposed regulations and compliance, because sometimes we get this idea, like I said earlier, at the slide that talks about an idea of how a piece of legislation begins. That can also assist, because then we would know that ensuring legitimacy to the end proposed regulation and compliance. I know at some point I was helping the Free State liquor traders in drafting the legislation. You know, it was a difficult task, but what I liked about it, we always agreed on things that we can disagree on. And increasing partnership, ownership, and responsibility in implementation. It can also assist in strengthening our democracy, preventing conflict among different groups and between the public and government, and increasing confidence in public institutions. You know, this is very important because as members of the community, I feel that we have left too many things in the hands of the politicians. And remember, the politicians, it's their job to talk, it's their job to canvass. So whenever somebody is not happy with something that is happening, they can talk about that, but it's us, the administrators and the members of the community, that can reach consensus on how things can be done. And this can help in balancing the scale, because the way things are now, the scale is actually balanced towards the representative aspect of our democracy. Now, what would be the challenges in ensuring participatory lawmaking process? One of the challenge would be government may be pressed by deadlines. And what is the meaning of this? You know, yes, like some few weeks back, we received a confirmation from the NCOP to actually facilitate or decide on how we're going to handle and the amendment on the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, simply because it was urgent. And the reason that it was urgent is because there was a court order that said an amendment must be effected within a period of 12 months. Now, COVID disturbed that process. Now, the NCOP had to come and request us. Personally, I wouldn't have a problem with that legislation being adopted without conducting public participation, because it's for the benefit of the disadvantaged women of our country. Because it refers to the woman who's married in terms of customary law also can claim the assets or the property within that customary law. So to me, it's in favor of women. It's another milestone. Number two is that it may not be clear as to who to consult or engage or how to do it. So collaborating with Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry would actually assist, because you would know that in your chamber, who do you have when it comes to what kind of legislation, and you can assist us. And participatory processes are also costly, and they require investment in organizing meetings, writing comments, and providing feedback. Business have an opportunity to assist us here, because you have venues, you have many things, and even us, we can see how we can help each other. So that is something that would be a challenge. And the political context may not be supportive of public involvement. You know, sometimes it depends on what kind of legislation that is being drafted, and it would depend which party is in favor of it and which party is not. I remember when we had the public participation on the traditional leaders bill, traditional courts bill, it had a provision that legal representative, when members sit at the traditional court, would not be a requirement. In fact, it's discouraged. And the other party was not happy with that, because it said it was against the Constitution. But many people who understand what happens at the traditional communities, you'd understand that, that most of the lawyers, not all, but some of the lawyers would take advantage of that process, and they would drag it. Because actually the traditional courts bill was more on conciliatory, not actually adjudicating on or litigating in a manner that does not actually provide for solution. And those who participate may not have enough understanding of the issues at stake. Now, there are critical uncertainties when it comes to public participation. We have been able to conduct public participation physically. We've been traveling around the Free State, and lots of things has been happening. Even though people who would come in when we do some of the pieces of legislation would not be people who are relevant, but we conquered. However, COVID-19 presents us with a challenge because most of the people who attend our public participation are people who are not working, people who do not really understand. And now we need to have people who can really support, who would be able to invite through the fourth industrial revolution. As it is right now, I'm not so sure how we're going to be dealing with the pieces of legislation that are coming from next week going forward. Now, the factors to be noted in conclusion of my presentation is that as a legislature, we have a duty to facilitate public involvement. However, we're not so sure if the way we are doing it is the right way because we don't see people who contribute positively in most cases. Failure by society to engage has adverse effects on the fundamental rights because if people who are directly affected are not involved meaningfully, then we have a challenge of constitutional challenge to be taken to court and all that. And decisions, they must be made, they will actually end up being made contrary to the will of the people because those who understand are not attending the public participation. And as you have seen in the case of Sava, will end up being taken to court for litigation. And we know in South Africa that litigation is very costly and it has become somehow a gold mine for the legal practitioners. And South Africa can actually save money from litigation if members of the community, business participate in the lawmaking processes. And that money can be taken somewhere else. It can actually assist in creation of jobs instead of paying thousands and thousands and millions to the lawyers for something that the public has left in the hands of the courts. The strength of our constitutional court is that it has the ability to safeguard and protect the dignity of the minority people and the vulnerables. However, the reasonableness test duty that has been decided in the case of Lamosa, as you have seen earlier on when I was presenting, provides that actually there is no procedural safeguards because Lamosa case now provides that the NCOP can decide as to whether a bill should be actually taken out for public participation or not. It leaves the legislature with ample discretion to meet the minimum requirements set in both the rationality and reasonable test that was decided in the case of MERA 4. So it is important that members of the public, members of business sector stand up and do attend public participation. If you can't, it's fine, but put your comments in writing so that you can positively contribute to making of laws. It's your duty, it's your right in terms of the Constitution. The implication of failure to participate, it simply means you as a citizen, you as business, you will actually participate in our democracy once every 5 years. That is why most of the time you'll hear that people say, "Aye, next year, I'm not gonna vote for this party again. I can't, it's enough." It's because you are not doing what you're supposed to do in terms of our Constitution. You have power, you have the authority, you have the right to representative and participatory democracy. Because if you don't do this, then it means there is no point in us having a democracy. We can as well move to an autocratic kind of democracy. I mean, leadership. In closing, I'm going to quote Albie Sachs in the case of Doctors for Life. He said, "In our country, active and ongoing public involvement is a requirement of constitutional government in a legal sense." So you are the ones that are sending the money to the courts as members of the public, as well as members of business. On having said that, Leon, I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you so much, Connie, for sharing that with us. It was absolutely insightful, and I think we really drew a lot of, I think, a lot of perspective and a lot of understanding out of the presentation that you've just given us. I would just like to remind everyone that we are going to allow time for questions to be presented to Connie during this segment. I've asked in the comment section that you guys would do that, so you're more than welcome to do that. While I just to give it an opportunity for everyone to do that, Connie, I just think just one or two questions just from my side, if I can pose it while everyone else is just waiting regarding that. One would be leading back to the first question that you asked all of us, is the fact that what is our role? And immediately from a Chamber of Commerce and Industry perspective, I already asked myself what is our role as a Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry in how business obviously understands the platforms that are available for them, and we obviously answer that question, but I want to take it a step further and ask the following question: is that how can we, as different entities within the sphere of influence, really make it much more accessible for everyone to understand this? Because it just feels to me that it should not take us to organize webinars or organize events and all that stuff for people to actually start to understand the reality of their democratic right. So I just want to find out, how can we actually make it a bit more easily accessible? I think maybe speak about our education system, what happens within high school, primary school, our tertiary education, and just how do people actually get privy to the information. That's just one facet of my question. And the other one is just regarding, obviously, women that are involved in the legislature as well. I want you to touch a bit more about women and the role that women have played within advisory systems as well, but also women that have been involved. And maybe if you can give an example of one or two women that you've encountered, maybe this means just jumping on the bandwagon of Women this month and all that stuff, but just give advice on who do you look up to for a lot of advice and inspiration within the legislature's office that are women that you can say are powerhouses within the sphere of influence. So that's just from my side. We've had multiple conversations about a lot of the content that you've covered as well. So I would actually allow someone else in the chat room to ask a bit of questions, if so. But I think maybe if you can touch on those things, that would be lovely, Connie. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Leon. With regard to information, we can start by putting you on our mailing list when we have new legislation that are coming. And also you can subscribe to Parliament today. Parliament always puts things, they send emails almost every day. Even communication from different committees you can get as a member of public, as a citizen. And also with regard to women played role, I've been trained by women on the legislative sector. I've been trained by Advocate Amelia Swanepoel. She's the one who took me by hand. I know it's one of those fields that not many women has been exposed. In fact, not many legal practitioners have been exposed. We are very few of us. But here in the Free State, Advocate Amelia Swanepoel and Advocate Kunidi Tira, they were the ones that took me by their hand. In fact, they helped me several times, and I ended up actually starting to be lazy because I know they were always there, until they left me alone. And they told me to my face that, no, it's enough. You are going to do it by yourself. So here I am today, and I'm very thankful to them.
No, that's fantastic, Connie. I'm actually really happy to hear that. Is there any other questions and comments that we would like to direct towards Connie? Ladies and gentlemen, you're allowed to raise your hand as well, because I see that there's not a lot that is happening in the chat room at this point in time. I will give about, say, 2 minutes for everyone to just, if you're more than welcome to raise your hand. I'll just have that screen up there for everyone. But you're welcome to just raise your hand if you've got any question that you would like to direct to our guest speaker for tonight.
I think my presentation was clear enough.
I also think so. It does seem like it. It does seem like it.
But if there are no questions, then there must be commitments.
Yeah, so my second thought was going to be that everyone that is joining in today and also those that are participating needs to make sure that they become members of the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry and also help with what we are building here, Connie, where we are building an in-depth relationship between the office of the legislator and the chamber so that we can actually get business participation, so that we understand how vital the role is of the impact that business has in the involvement of the lawmaking process within the South African context. I actually see there's just one comment that says, "Thank you for the great presentation, Mayor." That is from Thabo Pizze that just left that comment there. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems like there are no further questions that need to be directed towards Mayor Connie. Mayor Connie, is there any closing remarks that you would like to present to the audience?
Of course, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry for inviting me. Actually, it's my first time presenting without seeing the audience, other than at home, at work. And I really want to thank those who came, listened to the invitation, and graced this occasion. Thank you so much for coming. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
From the chamber, I'm sorry, Mary, it seems like that you want to say something there, Mary. Just unmute yourself and then you're more than welcome to say something, Mary.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Mr. CEO. We appreciate your initiative. I just want to say thank you, Ms. Connie, for very, very informative presentation that you did convey to us. We were hungry for that, and then really, I believe from now on you have already outdone yourself to the legislature. We are going to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Awesome. There's also another comment that I would like to read to you, Mayor Connie. It's from Lincoln Meyer. He says, amazing presentation and thought-provoking. We have to stop the outsourcing our democracy. So that is a comment from him. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mary, for your comments as well. I think, Mayor Connie, from a chamber's perspective, it is really for us fundamental that we have this engagement with you. Myself and you, I think we've had, throughout the weeks, we've had a couple of discussions about how we can really make sure that the active participation can actually still continue. And from my side as well, from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry side, is thank you so much for taking your time out and availing yourself. And we look forward to more engagement with you. We know we're going to get more participation from the business side. And we know that we have you there on that side to give us the right understanding and the right perspective that we need to be able to make sure that our country develops in the way it's supposed to in this economic context that we find ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I would just like to make sure that I also reiterate the following, that the main objective of the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry is to advocate for growth within our sphere of influence that we obviously find ourselves in, and that is the Free State province. Obviously, that doesn't limit us to just having an impact here. Obviously, we can make a lot of influence within our country, but we focus mainly on advocating for development and economic growth within the Free State, and also get employment going as well. And we normally have an exclusive bit of information that we normally share with you guys towards the end of our webinar, just as an added bonus for you attending to it. And this normally comes from the desk of our president, Thabo Pizze. He's unfortunately unable to physically do this tonight with us, but I will share this document with everyone just after the webinar is done. And it's a compensation of Occupational Injuries and Disease Act, and there's an entire benefits document that has been rolled out, and we will share that with everyone that is joined in here, so you guys can actually have a look at that and also see how you can benefit out of that as well. That is from the desk of the President for today, and I would gladly like your feedback and information back on that as well. We will also send out a questionnaire based on the information that was shared out tonight, so we would like you to also participate in that and just give us some more background and information or understanding as to how you guys find the webinars, the time slots, the information that's shared. If there are questions that maybe tonight while you are reminiscing or thinking about what you've heard tonight, that you are able to share that with us as well. So you are more than welcome to actually do that and be able to just give us a bit more information on that via the questionnaire. You're also able to find all of our value proposition on our website. We will also send out a membership form to you as well. You're more than welcome to have a look at that and also share our profile as well, the portfolio of the Chamber, and also what it is that the Chamber stands for. Again, we would like to thank the fact that Connie joined us tonight. Next week, we'll also be having another webinar. We'll be sending out the invitation in due course time, but please book out every Tuesday evening as a webinar special with the Free State Chamber of Commerce and Industry. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much, and I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you so much, Fernando.